Today we're going to be painting a very special location. This location is in Florida at Wukalla Springs. So come and join me on this adventure and we can swing into action because we are going to be painting the Tarzan tree. Yes, the very same Tarzan tree that appeared in the movies. So let's get painting and have some fun. To start with, I very lightly drew in with pencil the outline of the Tarzan tree and some little turtles making their way up the tree from the bottom there, and a few overhanging branches coming in from the sides, etc. We got a little far bank that we'll talk about in much more detail later. So started with a wash of yellow. I put some clear water in the middle where the bulk of the tree foliage is. Then I came in with a wash, a redder wash, which is a combination of the yellow and red. You can use different combinations of Winsor & Newton colours for this. I've mainly used Winsor yellow and a little bit alizarin crimson. And then I've gone into a blue, and I've chosen here a cobalt blue because it's a little bit more mellow. If I had chosen Windsor blue, it would be a little bit more harsh, and sometimes you want that. On this occasion, we want a fused situation with the rising misty sun in the background surrounding the tree, and the cobalt blue works better for that. I know you're seeing lots of brushwork here, and the philosophy of some is hardly touch the paper, which is appropriate sometimes, but on other occasions, when you want to achieve a fused in situation, you have no choice but to touch the paper several times. So I'm not 1000% beholden to a lot of the dictates. You must do this, you can't do that, you got to do it this way. You'll find your own way. I just hope that these instructional videos help you explore different techniques and what suits best for you for your style of painting. Now, whilst that is wet, I'm fusing in some of the green foliage here, there, and everywhere, letting that all melt in together, because that is effectively an underpainting that we're achieving at this stage. Underpainting together with the bulk of the background sky, of course. I have come down to where the bank is and purposefully left some white, which we'll talk about later, where the bank meets the water. Continuing to lay in some under painting, some green here for foliage at the bank area. For the sky, I mainly used a mop brush, as you saw, and then I went into, say, a number 10 and pointed brush to help fuse in different colours. At this stage, the foliage on the Tarzan tree, I'm primarily using a number 4 brush, but occasionally here and there I will go into number 1, number 2, etc. brush for some fine detail. And with this tree, try to make it varied. Don't be afraid of leaving gaps in between the various strands of foliage that are coming off the palm tree. I have mixed a combination of the cobalt blue and a little bit of light red, tiny bit, and a viridian. That makes a good combination for the foliage of this type of tree and for palmettos that we'll be painting in later on the farm bank. So as I said, vary that as much as possible here and there, especially in the middle part of the tree, drop in a combination of other colors and so forth to keep it interesting. And just think about the shapes of those palms to make it as realistic as possible. Now, of course, they're all hanging at different angles. Some are straight up there, and others are a bit more floppy and so forth. So you're only seeing one half of the palm. And there we go in terms of varying the color here and there. And you do see on these trees that where different strands have died off a little bit and they've browned a little bit and so forth, then you should observe that and include that in your painting to make it as convincing, authentic as possible. As far as the trunk is concerned, I've tried to vary the trunk as much as possible, show little bits of the underpainting here and there as light parts on the tree. They don't exactly have a bark as such, but nevertheless, the surface of the tree is shown light here and there. And at the top of the tree, where it meets the foliage, it's always dark there. It would be in any case, but also it's receiving much more shadow at that top section. Just lightly painting the little turtles. Easy to do, just their tiny little head and their body shape. Now in the background, I've got a light color combination of the blue and a red to show faint trees that are leafless, and that will help give a little bit more atmosphere to the painting, which you'll notice even more when we put in some of the foliage from the overhanging trees. And it helps us with regards to achieving some distance that will be taking place there, because those trees that we just put in would be faint compared to the surrounding foliage. And here you can have fun with the shapes of the overhanging tree limbs. Um, you can just do them as you wish. Just get them coming in from the sides so that they look pretty convincing. Then go into the scraping of the brush technique, the side of the brush that you'll see in my other videos, to show the leaves from those trees, rather than painstakingly trying to paint in every single tiny little tree, leaf rather. You just scrape them in with the side of the brush. Here I've added a blue heron standing on one of the limbs on the ground there, and quite a simple shape, enough detail to tell the story, but not having to spend lots of time doing it. Then for the water, we've gone into the yellow wash, a Windsor yellow, all together, and then adding on top of that the slightly orangey red wash. So maybe some alizarin crimson again with a Windsor yellow or a light red, whichever you decide. And then while still wet, so we're doing lots of wet in wet here, we're laying in some of the greeny, browny green colours on top and letting all that fuse together at this stage. Once that's dried, later on, we'll be laying some darks on top of that. So this is very much another underpainting. There's lots of underpainting that takes place in transparent watercolour. So we'll come up towards the far bank, and you'll see as well that I've penciled in the outline of a gator that has broken the surface of the water, just coming into the picture from the right there. Simple shape. So you can see the palette that I've got to the side for the mixing of the colours. I tried to mix as much of the pigment up in advance. It makes for a much more harmonious painting, I think, than trying to mix as you go along. So that has dried, and then, as I mentioned, we've gone into laying on some darker colour. And even for the water, I'm using a scraping technique here and there, which helps give a more convincing water surface where it's a little bit broken here and there with ripples and so forth that are taking place. So plenty of that underpainting is going to be showing through. And we'll carry on with this for a while, and then once we've done that, we'll be concentrating on some more detail here and there. Sometimes I will use a flat brush where the water is concerned, but at this stage I was using the round brush because it's much easier to get that broken surface technique with a round brush compared to a flat brush. And here and there, don't be afraid to dip into some of your light colour, like I've done here, in between some of the darker washes that you've laid down, to achieve a little bit more light on the surface here and there and make it more convincing and varied. So all that has dried, and I'm therefore laying in some reflection from the principal Tarzan tree onto the surface of the water, and a few more ripples that are dark. Then we're laying in some palmetto strands here and there on the far bank. There'll be some here on the left hand side, and then we'll put some on the right side too. And I'm strengthening some of the light colour on the far bank and the near bank to the left. And that shows a nice demarcation now. I think you'll agree that that starts to sing out. And I would mention at this stage that we do have to have quite strong lighting to produce the video so that you can see everything clearly. But when you see the final finished painting, you will see much more colour in the painting. It won't be so bleached out from the strong studio lights. So this alligators is a simple outline, easy to draw. You'll see plenty of pictures of them breaking the surface of the water that you can then use to just sketch in your version of an alligator. And just observe their different shapes. And one distinctive difference between an alligator and a crocodile, of course, is the snout. With the alligator, it's a much more rounded snout, and with the crocodile, it's quite pointed. And the crocodile has teeth that are coming from the top and the bottom, and they stick out quite a bit. So here's our alligator, and you can get some really big ones at Wukalla Springs because of course it is a national refuge, and so they're well protected, and they thrive in that environment and can get quite big. You'll see them if you go on one of the boat tours. You will actually be able to observe these real life. You get lots of photographs and plenty of the birds and the turtles and fish and so forth. It's a good fun trip. So the gator's been detailed, and once he's done, just do a little bit of reflections and ripples coming off from where he's swimming on the surface, to make that as realistic as possible, and using a flat brush at this time. A little bit of strengthening up in there. And there, we're right near the end. Please remember to like and subscribe, because if you do so, it's all free and you'll get notified of future videos. And I hope you've enjoyed this adventure, and look forward to you doing your version of the Tarzan tree. Thanks for watching. Happy painting till next time.